Good morning. Before we begin the program, audience members, please be sure your cell phones are turned off. Thank you. Will the audience please rise for the posting of the colors?
And salute. Two.
Let us now pledge allegiance to our flag and then remain standing for the national anthem.
Uncover. Hand over heart.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Cover.
Please join the choir in singing the national anthem.
Hand over heart. Two. Cover.
Good morning. On behalf of our entire school family, welcome to Centennial for the 2015 Veterans Day program. The words of Harry S. Truman perfectly capture the reason that we are gathered here today. Our debt to the heroic men and valiant women in the service of our country can never be repaid. They have earned our undying gratitude. America will never forget their sacrifices. Centennial is pleased to have with us several men and women who have served our country as members of the armed forces. Would the veterans please rise so that we may recognize you? Veterans, you may be seated. I think I can speak for everyone here when I give my heartfelt thanks to you, veterans and auxiliary members, for the many sacrifices that you made to protect our country. Words cannot express our appreciation for your loyalty and your dedication. And now the Centennial High School Concert Band, under the direction of Mrs. Liz Purdom, will perform Fanfare for the Unsung Hero and Marches of the Armed Forces. Mrs. Purdom. Thank you, Mrs. Purdom and band members. Please welcome Will and Claire Wilton to the stage to make a special Quilts of Valor presentation.
My name is Will Wilton, and I'm a freshman this year at Centennial. And our FCCLA chapter and I decided we would like to recognize our service members that have worked at our school with the Quilt of Valor. Quilts of Valor is a foundation that makes quilts and presents them to service members to show our gratitude. If Mr. Bill Mogi and Mr. Dick Rawlings can please join me on stage at this time. Earlier this semester, our current band teacher, Mrs. Purdom, and our past band director, Mr. Bowler. Mr. Mogi works at our school as a custodian, and he's here almost every day. We would like to present him with a quilt made by Janice Moore to show him our gratitude for his work that he does for Centennial. Mr. Owens was a past custodian that has worked at our school. Many of you might recognize him. We would like to present him with a quilt made by Kathy Dye. He served in the Air Force, so we included Air Force fabric into this quilt. The pillowcases that are going with the quilts today were made by Centennial Elementary students. Thank you.
Congratulations, Bill and Dick. We thank you for your service. I now extend a warm welcome to today's speaker. Lieutenant Colonel Christopher A. Bone is the commander of Air Force Reserve Officer Training Corps Detachment 465 and professor of aerospace studies at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, where he's responsible for developing high-quality leaders through a college-level officer training program. Colonel Bone earned a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering at Purdue University, a Master of Science from the University of North Dakota, a second Master of Science in Computer Engineering, and a Doctor of Philosophy from Ohio State University. He has also studied at the Air War College. During his years of service, Colonel Bone has received the Purple Heart, the Meritorious Service Medal with 2 oak leaf clusters, the Air Force Commendation Medal with oak leaf cluster, and the Air Force Achievement Medal with Valor Device and 2 oak leaf clusters. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Lieutenant Colonel Bone.
Good morning. Today we come together to honor and recognize American service members, past and present. This day's celebration and reflection originated from the signing of an armistice, a temporary cessation of hostilities on Monday, November 11, 1918, when all fighting ceased between the Allied nations and Germany, effectively ending World War I. A year later, President Woodrow Wilson declared the first commemoration of Armistice Day, a day to be filled with solemn pride in the heroism of those who served in their country and with gratitude for the victory in the war to end all wars. Congress approved the federal holiday in 1938, and in 1915, following 2 additional wars, Congress renamed the observance as Veterans Day, a day when the veterans of all wars were honored. I'd like to share a short video. While it's Air Force centric and it isn't even really about Veterans Day, I think it pretty well sums up why we set aside a day each year to honor America's veterans.
None of us were saints. Far from it. We just refused to believe that the line between right and wrong was hard to see. People always know the right thing to do, but they hesitate because they think of themselves. The things we did because we cared more about duty than glory. We cared more about getting it done than getting a medal. We never thought, how can I do this? We thought, how can we not do this? What were we gonna do? Let somebody else do our job? Because it was hard? We want you to fly this jet through the sound barrier. Yes, sir. We need you to jump out of a balloon in outer space to see if a human can survive the fall. Yes, sir. We need you to fly a bomber from an aircraft carrier for a raid on Tokyo, and you probably won't come back. Yes, sir. Selflessness only means something when you have something to give. Airmen, you have so much inside you, you have no idea. You will think of your mission, and you will think of your country, and you will not hesitate. Some people think we're trained so that we don't think, we just react. No. In the Air Force, we're just trained to think faster. We are required to think at 3 times the speed of sound. 100 billion terabytes come at you in a nanosecond, and 300 million American heartbeats are waiting and wondering what you're going to do to keep them safe, right now. Fear is natural. The most primitive human instinct is to save your own skin, to think of yourself first, to wonder, who will make that sacrifice for me? If I'm watching over the world, who's watching over me? We are. Aim high, airmen.
Veterans are recognized as men and women who have honorably served or are currently serving in America's armed forces. Today, Veterans Day is a celebration to honor all of America's veterans for their patriotism, love of country, and willingness to serve and sacrifice for the common good. It is also a day for reflection and for remembering. Whether you wear the uniform today, or wore it decades ago, you represent the fundamental truth. It's not the powerful weapons that make our military the greatest in the world. It's not the sophisticated aircraft, missiles, rockets, satellites, and cyber technology that make us the most advanced. The true strength of our military is the spirit and skill of our soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, and Coast Guardsmen. And the true strength of all our armed forces is seen in the men and women who have worn and wear the uniform of our nation's military. Despite our dearest desires, Veterans Day 2015 finds this nation still at war. Our sons and daughters continue to answer the call to support and defend our nation and our freedoms by serving around the globe in places like Eastern Europe and Southwest Asia, and much of the rest of the globe. There is no mystery behind the endurance and success of our service members. In every generation, from the War of Independence to this very hour, brave Americans have stepped up and served honorably in the armed forces of the United States. Every one of you deserves the admiration of our entire country. So today, it is America's privilege to say thank you to all of our veterans for your quiet courage and exemplary service, to let you know that we are grateful and acknowledge your many sacrifices and accomplishments. Here are a few examples. Tech Sergeant David Shea is a flight engineer on the CP-22 Osprey. That means his job is to keep the aircraft in flying condition while it's still flying. A couple of years ago, he was on a mission to rescue American citizens from a densely populated UN compound in Central Africa. During a routine approach, the aircraft came under heavy gunfire from ground forces, damaging the aircraft and wounding 4 Special Forces personnel on board. While manning the ramp-mounted tail gun, he was struck in his body armor's chest plate. Shaking off the shock of the ballistic impact, at this point I wonder just how many hands he really has. He tracked down a massive fuel leak while also treating the wounded men's injuries while also returning fire to defend his aircraft. Only after landing 400 miles later did he seek treatment for his own injuries. Sergeant Shea was awarded the Air Force McKay Trophy and the Distinguished Flying Cross for his actions. Tech Sergeant Thomas Bose is a combat controller. While working with the U.S. Army team and the Afghan security forces, Bo's team was ambushed by insurgents with AK-47s, heavy machine guns, mortars, and recoilless rifles from multiple fighting positions. During the ensuing 12-hour firefight, Tech Sergeant Bose returned fire with his own rifle and grenade launcher, while also calling in airstrikes from overhead F-16 fighting Falcons. He coordinated air support from AC-130W Stinger gunships and strafing runs by AH-64 Apache helicopters. When an exfiltration landing zone was secured, Sergeant Bose continued to call in air support to protect the team before finally departing the field himself. He was awarded the Bronze Star Medal with Valor for his actions. When I was preparing my talk, I also looked up some of the stories of veterans who are no longer in the active service. One that stood out to me is Chief Master Sergeant Earl Hendricks. Chief Hendricks was a bomb loader for multiple aircraft. While serving in Vietnam, a rocket pummeled his bunker, killing him and 17 others. Yes, you heard that right. When he was transported, he was tossed onto a concrete slab, which somehow miraculously restarted his heart. A medical examiner at the morgue found his pulse and sought immediate medical attention. After recovering, Chief Hendricks continued to serve out a 30-year career on the flight line, finally retiring in 1987. Today, he remains a pillar in his community, which is pretty typical. Veterans, after they leave the military service, go on to be teachers, scoutmasters, police officers, politicians, farmers, entrepreneurs, leaders of nonprofits, and your neighbor down the street. When you raise your right hand and swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, you write a blank check payable to the United States of America for an amount up to and including my life. When veterans leave the service and tear up that blank check, they often find that the old habits of putting service before self die hard. They still want to see America great, and they continue to make it so in other subtler ways. Those were just a few illustrations of how military service demands a special kind of commitment. For the time you spend in uniform, the interests of the nation always come first. And those burdens are shared by family members who make many sacrifices of their own, who face separation during deployments, and sometimes have to bear permanent loss. But there are rewards. There is the pride of developing one's character and becoming a leader, serving a cause far greater than any self-interest, and the nobility of protecting our nation. Every man and woman who wears America's uniform is part of a long, unbroken line of achievement and honor. No single military power in history has done greater good, shown greater courage, liberated more people, or upheld higher standards of decency and honor and valor than the Armed Forces of the United States. Veterans like you and those airmen I just described are part of a legacy to be proud of. And those of you who contribute to this legacy must never be taken for granted. To honor our veterans, we must continue to keep the promises we have made. We must care for those who are injured in the service of our country, and we must support the families of our deployed service members. And we must remember those who have died. For 240 years, America has relied on her sons and daughters to step forward to be her sword and shield, on land, on sea, in the air, in space, and now in cyberspace, defending our nations against those who would do us harm. Our servicemen and women have continued to demonstrate the vital role they play in joint operations around the world. Today, the story of your service as veterans of our great nation is carried on by a new generation of dedicated, courageous soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, and Coast Guardsmen, all who support them. America's airmen have been at war for nearly 25 continuous years, beginning with Operation Desert Storm in January 1991. In the last year, more than 51,000 airmen deployed. That's roughly the same number who deployed at the height of Desert Storm, but this time with an Air Force less than half that size. At this moment, more than 23,000 airmen are deployed in more than 90 locations around the world, conducting military operations, providing humanitarian care with peoples around the world. From the mountains of Afghanistan, calling precision airstrikes and dropping relief supplies on postage stamp landing zones, to the deserts and villages of Iraq and Syria, to Africa and to Europe, and to the skies over our own country. Veterans, in the air and on the surface, continue to ensure our nation's freedoms and our way of life. To these and all the brave and talented men and women in America's military, to all those who serve, to you and your families, and to all of our veterans, thank you. Veterans continue to serve long after they take off their uniform. You're seen across the nation, supporting our troops and their families when they go to war. You welcome them when they come home. You volunteer and serve in jobs that give other veterans the care they deserve. And when America's heroes are laid to rest, you are there as a reminder of their service, sacrifice, and courage and contributions to our grateful nation. I'd like to read a passage from President Lincoln's second inaugural address as the Civil War was finally nearing its end. With malice toward none and with charity for all, with firmness in the right as God has given us to see the right, let us strive to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who will have borne the battle and for his widow and orphan, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace amongst ourselves and with all nations. President Lincoln's words have stood the test of time and serve today as a commitment to never forget our veterans and those injured in our defense and the families of those who have died in the service. Veterans, you have done your duty to your families, to your communities, to your fallen comrades, and to your country. You have honorably served your nation with great distinction, and we can never say it enough. For your service in war and peace, thank you, and God bless you. And God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Bone, for taking the time to speak today. We are deeply honored to have you here with us. Thank you for your service. Just a quick announcement. I wanted to wish a special happy birthday to all of our Marines, as yesterday was their 240th birthday. So happy birthday, Marines. The concert choir, under the direction of Mr. Ben Rickard, will now perform Bring Him Home. Mr. Rickard. choir members. At this time, one of our Legion members would like to say a few words.
Getting blessed with rain today. On behalf of Utica Post 49 and all the Legion members and veterans here today, thank you to the school board, staff, students, instrumental groups, and the vocal groups. Excellent performance. Thank you very much. As a player, that I want to thank you for your support on this Veterans Day. And also to Colonel John Bowman, sir. Thank you for your encouraging words there. And also Beaver Crossing Post 46, 178 for Post Color. Thank you very much, guys. With that, I'd like to put a plug in for all the juniors that might be behind me or wherever in the school, reminding them of our junior law cadet program and boys state and girls state program. So please be looking for that application. We would encourage you to sign up for that. It's a very good program. With that, thank you very much for the day, and thanks for Captain King. We got them all here. Thank you again.
Please welcome Dr. Dwight Larson, who would like to make a special presentation.
What a group. This is wonderful. I've been doing this for several years, and not accustomed to using the microphone, but I've been doing this for several years, and this is the most magnificent showing for Veterans Day. And I do play the D-flat clarinet, and I want to let you musicians know that just because I have my back to you doesn't mean that you're forgotten. I don't sing, but my wife does, and you choir members really have done a great job. Thank you. Colonel Bond mentioned body armor. Normally on this particular occasion I wear my uniform, my World War II uniform. But I have some body armor on and I can't fit into my uniform. So I have to wear civvies and it's not too comfortable. It's very exciting to be here in Utica. As a matter of fact, it's pretty exciting to be anywhere. Because at one time, when I was over in France, some German had his eye on me. And if he would have known, if he would have taken 2 clicks to the left, I wouldn't be here. I would have been someplace else. This being Veterans Day, we give honor to the veterans, but I'd like to give a little synopsis of my own. I was in the 44th Infantry Division. We landed at Omaha Beach in France, but not in June. We landed in September, and then we went across France. And encountered a few exciting things on that trip. As a matter of fact, I did, but also our group walked down a World War I trench. The Germans knew about that, and they dropped mortar and artillery fire behind us, not on us, but behind us, so they could chase us out of the World War I trench. And then as we got out, then they would take aim at us. That wasn't when I was wounded, but it was at a later time. But I see you have a pretty full schedule, so I'm not going to take any more time. Maybe sometime when I come here, if invited, I can tell you more about it. But I'm going to wipe my nose. While over in France, I did receive the Purple Heart and also the Combat Infantry Badge, which, if you'll notice, is a blue medal above all other medals, and any person that has a raft of badges, that will always be on top. So I feel very honored to have received that. After my military service, I completed medical school, and after medical school, before I started in practice, I met a very lovely lady, and she took pity on me and said she would marry me. That's Shirley, my wife. We had 3 beautiful daughters, and that's enough of that. Now, to address the reason for my being here, some years ago, I met a very fine colonel, Colonel Barney Oldfield. Met him in Lincoln, Nebraska. I didn't know him, but he was a World War II veteran also, and that's kind of gave us a little adhesion. He wanted to honor his wife, Veda, and she had died. And so together we got together, of course, and worked out a scholarship program. And every year we give out a scholarship, a $2,000 scholarship to a student who writes the best essay on why this veteran, Nebraska veteran, should be honored. And today I would like to acknowledge the student that received that, Colton Kirk. Would you please come forward? Colton, I'd like to present this certificate to you, and it will tell you that you have one, and then also at graduation time we'll give you like a diploma, and that will be thank you. That will be something you can frame and hang in your dorm if you wish to, and we will make arrangements to get $2,000 lined up for you. You bet me. Yeah, you're welcome, and you have good success in school. Do that.
Let's now enjoy the concert choir and band performing their final selections Blades of Grass and Pure White Stones, and There's Peace.
not singing with us, you might want to sit down. If you're not singing with us, you might want to sit down. So if you don't know the song, go ahead and sit down.
Yeah.
Band and choir members and directors, thank you for the time put in to make today's performance even more meaningful. Audience, please stand for the playing of taps and the retiring of the colors.
And salute. Two.
That concludes today's program. Once again, veterans, we are so thankful that you were able to join us today. We look forward to seeing you again next year. We will now dismiss the elementary students first. The rest of the audience may be seated as you wait to exit. Thank you.